These stone walls have no eyes, but I feel 23 pairs of them piercing through. They did not come to witness a wedding. They came to watch a sacrifice. And the offering is me. The corridors of the Palace of Marseille are cold, though hundreds of candles burn fitfully in their silver sconces. Their light dances like ghosts on the gold-embroidered tapestries, and their warmth cannot chase away the chill seeping from the marble beneath my feet. Beside me, Isabella, my loyal lady-in-waiting, murmurs reassurances in Italian. Her voice trembles more than mine. She speaks of the glory that awaits, of how I will be Queen of France, but her words are lost in this vast space, swallowed by the laughter and music that echo from the grand hall. I am 14 years old. I was promised a crown, not a cage. My wedding gown of Florentine silk, which the nuns at St. Lucy's convent spent months embroidering, now feels like a suit of armor far too heavy. My gloves are damp with sweat. With every step toward the bridal chamber, I can smell the beeswax and incense mingling with the wine and perspiration of the noble crowd. It is the scent of decay dressed in luxury. The heavy oak door swings open. Inside is not a romantic space for a bride and groom. The room is flooded with candlelight, so bright it hurts the eyes. Henry, my new husband, stands there. He is just 15, strong in build, but with empty eyes that constantly dart toward the woman beside him. Diane de Poitiers, 34 years old, beautiful in a sharp, cruel way. Her smile as she looks at me is not one of joy, but of ownership. She sees me as a new pet, a toy about to be broken. Henry approaches, his hand ice-cold and trembling when it touches mine. He says nothing. He doesn't have to. Every one of his movements is controlled by Diane's subtle glances. She gives a signal, and he leads me to the center of the room. It is an ancient ritual. Diane's voice rings out, smooth as velvet but cold as steel. To ensure the purity of the royal bloodline. A purification. It is a lie. This is not purification. This is humiliation. Whispers begin to rustle from behind a large tapestry. I know they are there. The 23 vultures of the court. I hear their French, a language I am still learning, but I understand enough to feel the mockery. Do you hear? The little Florentine bird is trembling. A muffled giggle. The clinking of wine glasses. A drunken nobleman steps out from the shadows, bowing theatrically. The stench of his cheap perfume and sour breath washes over me. Henry, under Diane's gaze, begins the ritual. He is clumsy, awkward. Every action is a calculated insult, choreographed by Diane to strip me bare, not physically, but spiritually. They want to crush my Florentine pride, to turn me into an obedient doll. I bite my lip, trying not to cry. But as the savage laughter from the hidden crowd grows louder, as I see the triumphant smile on Diane's lips, something inside me shatters. The room begins to spin. The candlelight blurs. I collapse. In the darkness of unconsciousness, I do not see a nightmare. I see a garden, the garden of St. Lucy's convent, where I grew up. The sun is warm, and the nuns are teaching me about herbs. This one, Catherine, is belladonna, Sister Maria says. A few drops can dilate the pupils, but more will stop the heart. I see the others. Hemlock, which killed Socrates, growing quietly beside lavender. The amanita mushroom, with its brilliant red cap, which can send a man to his death in a spiral of hallucinations. The lessons of healing are now whispering to me of a different purpose. The poison plants are no longer a warning, they are a promise. When I awaken, dawn has broken. The room is empty, leaving only silence and the smell of burnt-out candles. I did not die, but the innocent 14-year-old girl from Florence did. The one who rose from those ashes was something else, cold, silent, and infinitely patient. Isabella rushes in, crying, trying to embrace me. I gently push her away. There are no more tears. The pain has been forged into a purpose as hard as steel. I sit before the vanity. In a drawer, I find the leather-bound diary my aunt gave me. It is still empty. I pull out a silver hairpin, studying its sharp point for a moment, and then, without hesitation, I prick my fingertip. A single, dark red drop of blood wells up. I turn to the first page of the journal, and with that drop of blood, I write the first name, Diane de Poitiers. The vow was made, not with words, but with blood. The game had begun. 3 years is a long time for a young girl, but it is the blink of an eye for a plan of revenge. To the French court, I was Catherine de Medici, the quiet Italian bride, the shy foreigner who only knew how to smile, curtsy, and attend mass devoutly. I was a shadow, a pale decoration next to the brilliant Diane de Poitiers, who still openly possessed my husband's heart and his bed. They thought I was weak. They thought I was broken. They were wrong. Weakness is the most perfect cloak. While they were busy with their hunts and extravagant balls, I became a student of silence. I learned to listen. I would pretend to drop a silk fan just to linger and hear two dukes discuss the gambling debts of a man on my list. I befriended a countess's chambermaid to learn that her mistress had a terrible allergy to pollen, a useless piece of information to anyone else, but a doorway for me. Jean de Montmorency, the one who had wagered on my endurance that night, became my first case study. I learned which wine he favored, how he always overate at feasts, and that he had a secret fear of spiders. Every habit, every weakness, was recorded in stark black ink in my leather-bound book, right beside his name. But the herbal knowledge from the convent was not enough. I needed a teacher, a master of the darker arts. Isabella, through her connections among the servants, found him. Maester Valois, an old alchemist cast out from court for his supposedly heretical experiments. I went to him on a rainy night, in a damp cellar deep beneath the dyer's district, where the air was thick with the smell of mold and chemicals. He was gaunt, his eyes unnaturally bright in the candlelight. At first, he refused. "My lady," he rasped, "this kind of knowledge only leads to the pyre." I did not argue. I placed 2 things on his table: a heavy purse of gold and a copy of the warrant for his arrest for illegal alchemy that I happened to acquire. "You can choose the gold and my protection, Maester Valois," I said softly, "or you can choose the flames. I only require formulas that can mimic disease, poisons that leave no trace, deaths that look like the will of God." His eyes widened. He understood. I was not an ordinary student. I was a patron. Under his tutelage, I perfected my weapons. I learned that the venom of a certain toad, when mixed with wine, would induce a heart attack identical to one of natural causes. I learned how to extract an oil from the seeds of the wolfsbane plant, where a single drop was enough to kill a strong man in convulsions. My apothecary was not a grand room, but my own mind, where I measured and weighed each death. The first performance began on a winter morning. Jean de Montmorency. I did not do it myself. That would be a fool's mistake. Instead, I used a chain of command. I gave an order to a servant whose father's gambling debts I had cleared. He was merely asked to add 3 drops from a small glass vial to Montmorency's favorite cask of wine. He was told it was a special spice from Italy. From my balcony, I watched. I heard the screams from his quarters. I saw the physicians rushing in. Hours later, the news spread through the palace. Jean de Montmorency was dead after a violent seizure, foaming at the mouth. "It must have been something he ate," they whispered. I stood there, silent, feeling a cold, terrifying satisfaction. That night, I opened my book. The candlelight danced on the page as I took my quill and drew a single, clean line through the name of Jean de Montmorency. 1 down. 24 to go. The next name was the Comtesse de Varennes, a spiteful widow who had mercilessly mocked my Italian accent during my first weeks at court. Her punishment had to be symbolic. I sent her a gift, an exquisite box of scented Florentine powder, which I knew she would be unable to resist. But mixed into the fine powder, Maester Valois had helped me blend an almost invisible fungal spore. It did not kill instantly. It attacked the larynx, causing inflammation and swelling from within. Within a week, her famously clear voice became a rasp, then disappeared entirely. 2 weeks later, she suffocated in her sleep. She who had used words to spread venom now died in absolute silence. At a royal banquet, when the news of the Countess's death was announced, I glanced across the long table. My eyes met those of Diane de Poitiers. She was watching me, a flicker of suspicion in her sharp gaze, but she dismissed it, assuming it was mere coincidence. I simply returned her gaze with a humble smile and raised my glass. The spider's web was spun, and now the spider was ready to approach its largest prey. The confrontation with Diane de Poitiers could not be a swift blow. Her death had to be a slow symphony of decay, a years-long reflection of the agony I had endured in a matter of hours. I began my dance of death with subtlety. Maester Valois had prepared for me what he called aqua tofana, a colorless, odorless, tasteless solution derived from arsenic and lead. A small dose would do no immediate harm, but it would accumulate in the body, slowly eroding one's vitality from the inside. I became Diane's most attentive friend. I sent her the finest wines from Florence, each bottle blessed with a few drops of aqua tofana. I gifted her exclusive skin cosmetics, which contained minuscule amounts of mercury. Day by day, week by week, she began to wither before the entire court. Her once vibrant skin turned sallow. Her lustrous blonde hair began to fall out. Her sharp memory became clouded. The royal physicians were baffled, diagnosing it as melancholy of age. One afternoon in the rose garden, she confronted me. "You've done something, haven't you, you Italian girl?" she whispered, her voice a dry rasp, her eyes burning with a final flicker of hatred. "I see the way you look at me. Your smile. It is like a tombstone." I merely smiled, the innocent expression I had practiced 1,000 times in the mirror. "My lady," I replied, my voice dripping with false concern. "You do not look well. Perhaps you should rest more. I pray for your health constantly." She knew. I knew she knew, but she could prove nothing. That was the sweetest part of the revenge. She was a prisoner in her own decaying body, forced to watch her enemy flourish while she faded away. Her final night came. Diane lay in her bed, too weak to even sit up. I, as queen, paid her a visit. I personally brought her a cup of medicinal wine, claiming it was a precious remedy from my homeland. "Drink," I said softly. "It will ease your pain." In her sunken eyes, I saw desperation and surrender. She drank. Hours later, she was dead. At 66, the most powerful woman in France was gone. Now only one major name remained in my book: my husband, King Henry II. His death could not be from a secret poison or illness. It had to be a spectacle, a message to the world, and a release for me. Fate, or perhaps I, provided the perfect opportunity. The 10th of July, 1559, a grand tournament was held to celebrate peace with Spain. From the royal balcony, I watched. Henry, proud and confident, rode his warhorse onto the field. His opponent was Gabriel de Montgomery, the captain of his Scottish Guard. Before the joust, I requested to bless Montgomery's lance, a gesture of the Queen's favor. In the brief moment I touched the wooden tip, no one saw my gloved hand deftly apply a nearly invisible wax. A wax mixed with an extract of ergot fungus, a poison Maester Valois had taught me, would not kill instantly but would cause a necrotic infection and horrific hallucinations. The trumpets blared, the horses charged. The lances met with a crack. A splinter from Montgomery's lance shattered the king's helmet and pierced his eye. The crowd screamed. Henry fell. He did not die quickly. He suffered for 10 long days. 10 days of fever, convulsions, and nightmarish visions in which he shrieked that 23 demons were tearing him apart. It was an agony no normal wound could cause. I sat by his bedside every day, holding his hand, playing the part of the devoted wife until the very end. Only I knew his death throes were a drawn-out, amplified replay of my own suffering. When he finally drew his last breath, I did not weep. I felt a cold, quiet peace. 26 years after that horrific wedding night, the final debt was paid. Later, when I became regent of France, I ordered a strange symbol to be carved upon Henry's tomb. 3 interlocking circles, bisected by a single vertical line. It was the same symbol I had scrawled in my own blood in my diary on that night in 1533. A permanent reminder of a debt settled. That night, I sat alone in my chambers. The fire crackled in the hearth. I took out the old leather-bound book. 25 names, all of them now crossed out. I looked at it for a long time, then tossed it into the flames. The fire licked at the leather, consuming the names, the plans, and a part of my soul. As the last page turned to ash, I felt no regret. There were no more witnesses, no more enemies. There was only Catherine de' Medici and power.